Welcome to Sleepless Readings. Tonight we'll be reading a tale called My Cousin is Afraid of Mirrors. My cousin Myra is afraid of mirrors, like in abnormal and persistent ways. When we were little, she would insist on taking down the mirror in my room when she's sleeping there. Whenever she had to go to the bathroom, she'll ask me to accompany and shield her eyes from seeing the mirror. When she was a kid, this wasn't that much of a problem. All of us thought that as she grew up, she'll eventually overcome her unreasonable fear, but she's only gotten worse. It appears that Myra suffers from a severe case of spectrophobia. She would feel uneasy, at first, when she is within close proximity of a mirror. After a little while, she would become extremely anxious. If left unattended, and if she couldn't run away from the room, she would start getting hysterical. I didn't understand whatever it is that made her so afraid of them, but the look in her eyes when she saw one is rather chilling. When I was around 14, Myra and I went to the same school. We were hanging out at my place one day, and by then our family has made some sort of special protocol and preparation just in case she came around. We would put some sort of foldable cover on every mirror in the house. When she's around, I would go from room to room to cover the mirrors. That day, I did not yet understand how frightful this whole ordeal is to her. Like the dumb kid that I was, I thought it'd be funny to try and scare her a bit. I was, of course, horribly wrong. We arrived at my home after school, and I immediately went in to cover the mirrors while Myra waited in the living room. I planned on locking her alone in my room. I removed the cover and hide it somewhere she wouldn't find. I mean, if she's that scared, she could just cover the mirror with my bedsheet or something. "Myra, I've covered them up. You can come up here if you want. I'll be in the bathroom for a bit," I called out to her from the second floor.
Okay.
Myra rushed towards my room. I hid behind the bathroom door, and when I saw her step inside my room, I closed the door from behind her and locked it. I let out a giggle as I could hear her panicking inside.
No, please, let me out.
I could hear her sobbing on the other side of the door. Shortly after, she began banging on the door, screaming hysterically, and the sheer terror in her voice left me frozen.
Please let me out. Don't let him get me, please. I beg you, let me out. Please let me out. No, don't let him take me, please.
I was shocked beyond belief. I'd seen her get scared by mirrors before, but this is entirely different. Suddenly, a loud bang at the door brought me back to my senses. It dawned on me that this sick joke of mine is a lot more dangerous than I thought. I quickly unlocked the door. Myra was nowhere to be seen. Her bag was laid on the ground, its contents scattered around the room, and it seems like the bag itself was ripped apart by something. I looked towards the mirror on my wall and saw what seems like a distorted reflection of my room. For a short time, I could see shadowy figures lurking in the reflection. Their bodies distorted unnaturally and their limbs are disturbingly long. The way the creatures move around is as if they don't know how their body was supposed to move. It was jarring and terrible. Among those creatures, I saw Myra, dragged away by one of the creatures, her mouth covered by one of the creature's hands. I rushed towards the mirror and trying to get inside and take her away from whatever these creatures are. I remember I was yelling, cursing, crying, and hitting my mirror repeatedly looking for a way to get in. It was no use. The distorted reflection of my room turned normal again. I fell on my knees. I didn't really understand what happened, but I knew that whatever chance I had to enter that dimension has gone. I gazed upon my reflection only to notice that someone is behind me. It was Myra. I turned around as quick as I could and hugged her, sobbing on her shoulders. That's when I noticed something odd about her. She felt cold. I pulled away from her and saw her standing there, smiling from ear to ear. Her eyes were glued on me, wide open in a way that I'd never seen her done before. It was as if something had taken over her body and not exactly knowing how to make an expression. Whoever this person is, it's not the Myra I grew up with.
What are you standing around for?
She asked, with her uncanny expression attached on her face. What the hell are you? What have you done to her? I asked nervously. I'm not sure why, but I could sense malicious intent from her. She walked towards me and I backed away, instinctively trying my best to avoid the mirror too. Suddenly I heard my parents arrive home. She stopped and quickly ran downstairs and greeted them cheerfully. Her expression seemed normal. I felt like I've just lost my mind back then. My parents seemed rather pleasantly surprised to be greeted by Myra like that. She was always kind of gloomy and quiet. My parents must have thought we were having a great time at school or something. I couldn't say a word to my parents about what had happened earlier. This creature was acting normally in front of my parents, At some point, even I was convinced that this girl is indeed Myra. She had dinner together with my family, and the whole time I felt increasingly disturbed by the sight of this thing. No one seemed to realize that something about her is off. Soon after, her parents arrived to pick her up. She said farewell to my parents, and before she goes, she leaned in closer to me and whispered,
"You're next."
I remember standing there, frozen in fear. I realize I've unleashed something into this world who's pretending to be my cousin. I was too scared to say a word and quickly ran back to my room. I looked down at my mirror and covered it, making sure whatever it is in there can't get me. I lay awake in bed till morning. The next day, terrible news arrived at my door. Myra's entire family was killed when their house caught fire on the previous night. Her body was never found. The police suspect that she was obliterated by the fire, but I know what's really going on. It's been 5 years since that incident. That thing impersonating my cousin is still out there somewhere. She's not come for me yet, but I know that I'll be seeing her sooner or later. All I can do is stay away from the mirrors. Thank you for listening. That was My Cousin is Afraid of Mirrors. Please consider subscribing for more. I release new stories every Sunday. And as always, stay sleepless.